Greetings and welcome back to the farm. So my buddy was just here and asked me what I was doing with the lawnmower spindle off of the deck from that Cub tractor that we've been sort of working on and getting ready for spring. So I told him, well, it had a rough spot in one of the bearings, which ended up being a piece of wire that got stuck up through it, damaged the seal, and we'll get into that. Anyway, so he said, why on earth would you rebuild one of these? Why not just buy another one? And I said, well, I can buy new bearings because here's the numbers. And I will guarantee you that the aftermarket ones that you buy won't have Timken USA bearings in it. And I told him, well, you can pretty well guarantee that these will last better than anything that's the cheap aftermarkets. So what I'm going to do is take you guys along for the process of, putting this back together and making sure that, everything is going to be correct. I'll put a timestamp down here because I'm going to talk a little bit about what goes on to cause this problem. So if you're not actually interested in hearing all that, click on the, fast forward button to the time that's should be shown on the screen about now. And even more to the point of, I can buy the parts and all that. A new spindle for this, at least last I looked, was around $40. And that's all fine and dandy. The bearings and the two seals, so that'd be the cup, the cone, both upper and lower, and two seals, cost, a total of like $26 or something like that. I want to say it was, around $5 a piece for bearings. So, there's your 20, and about $3 each for the seals. And again, here's the numbers for anybody that, thinks they might want to do this. This is a Cub Cadet, which will be the same as any other MTD-owned homeowner-size lawn tractor. You could probably check your spindles, and a lot of times, and this one was the case, the numbers were actually in the parts book. Nobody probably ever really thought to look there or, bothered with it. And what ends up happening with these is, it's pretty simple, really. The issue is that, you're mowing along and you catch something underneath the deck. And I'm going to show you this one upside down because it's a little easier. So here's the race, the bearing. This is the seal. And notice how loose that is. That seal's not sealing anything being that loose. It's that loose because there was grass and strings and actually a piece of what looked like a grocery bag in this one all wrapped up around there. Well, that stretches your seal, creates heat, distorts the seal, melts things, and then enter water into your bearing. You see the rust on the shaft here. I cleaned off most of the rust, and you can see some of the junk still stuck to the bearing there. It doesn't take a whole lot of dirt to ruin a bearing, and that's sort of what happened here. It got a wire stuck up from the bottom side, so that would be, you got the outer part of the spindle, so that would be from this side. So it'd be from the grass side. Something got run over, got wound around the spindle, destroyed the seal, and before you know it, enter water, moisture, there goes your bearing. So it's important to, if you run something over, get that out of there as soon as you can. And, the obvious is try not to run stuff over, but it happens. I do it. I'm sure you do it. Everybody else does it. Except for the people that bring me stuff to work on. Nobody's ever hit anything with a lawnmower that's brought it to me to work on. It might be broken, bent into a pretzel, but they ain't hit nothing. So now that, you kind of have a better understanding of what can go wrong and what went wrong with this one, let's get on to actually, putting this thing back together. So I'll get these parts out of the boxes. I'll get the bearings packed. I just pack them with, regular number 2 axle grease. Same stuff that what you would grease the spindle with. Just, pack your bearing with it, and then it doesn't take forever to pump it up whenever you reinstall it. Mine, however, I managed to break off all the bolts. Joy. So I'm going to set this up and drill press right quick, and we'll drill through those on the, I guess would be the top side. There's a keeper there for a 5/16 fastener, so that would be a 1/2-inch hex. Will fit right down into that little slot. The other spindles on my deck already have that. This is the only one that was tapped into it, and I didn't realize that before I hit these with the impact. And whenever the first one broke off, I thought it was just seized. After breaking off the second and third ones, I checked, and I put a wrench on the fourth one and pretty much immediately snapped it off. So let me get these parts out, and we'll get this stuff all set up and ready to go back together, and I'll bring you back. Now I got one side in, seal all the way, everything's done on, I'll call it the bottom. I guess that is the bottom. So before you put everything together on I'll call it the top now, you got to make sure you put the spacer that goes between the bearings. That's very important for the load on the bearings. And then your seal actually rides on this surface right here. So you want to make sure that, it doesn't have a groove worn in it, it's not rough or anything, and that it's clean. Probably clean is more important than anything else. And like I said, I've just packed the bearings. I use like a red tacky grease, same thing for wheel bearings, and this, all the same. So put a little bit of grease in there, just, on the surfaces. It honestly looks like it's probably more than it is, but, it gets pumped full anyway. You're going to put, 5 or 10 pumps of grease into this and then let it run. You're putting some grease in there so it doesn't take you 100 pumps to get anything in it. You don't want to over grease it, but, you certainly don't want them running dry. It's probably one of the most common things that I hear whenever I get something in from a customer is that, I say, hey, when's the last time you greased this? And the question comes back of, you're supposed to grease that? So, it has a grease fitting. Yes, you're supposed to grease it. A few shots every now and again, certainly not going to hurt. And it'll definitely help in this situation where, it had water in it. So, a little bit of grease in there, displace the water. Might have saved this thing. Who knows? All right, I got the top seal popped in. You just want to, bump them in. Don't drive on them real hard. I use a small dead blow. That's a Harbor Freight variety. I don't really think it matters. Use something soft just so you're not beating the daylights out of it. And then, put the spacer and the pulley and the bolt, shaft, whatever you want to call it. Put that back in. Obviously down here is where the nut for the blade goes. I will probably thread it on just, a couple of turns just to, keep everything from wanting to dance around while I'm reinstalling, and then I'll put the blade back on. But pretty simple process, pretty straightforward, I guess. Check your spindles if they have tapered bearings. They're likely these. There's other spindles that use a roller bearing. It's just a ball roller. They'll have seals on them. They won't likely be replaceable, but they'll be a sealed type bearing. They're also not terribly difficult to change. They go bad just the same. Word of advice on those is if they're sealed inside and out, and you plan on greasing it, you're going to want to take the seals out on the inside portion. If you don't take the seals out, the grease will never get to the bearing, completely defeating the purpose of greasing them. These, however, obviously they're externally sealed. You have to put the seals in, so the grease that you pump in will go right to the bearing. So, that all being said, I'm going to get this thing put back in the deck here, hopefully before it gets too terribly dark. Get this mower out of the garage here and back in the barn where it belongs. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Give us a like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. If you got one of these, like I said, not too tough to work on them. Pretty basic tools. See you in the next one.